Good evening. I now call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of April 10th, 2023 to order. We don't have anyone doing our invocation this evening, but Commissioner Bruce Evans will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand? Next item on our agenda is roll call.
Chairperson Zurcher,
Here.
Vice Chairperson King. Here. Commissioner Laney. Here. Commissioner Griffiths.
Here.
Commissioner Evans.
Here.
Commissioner Rankin. Here. Commissioner Rutherford.
All right, moving on to item number 5, approval of the minutes from the February 13th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes from the February meeting? Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to announcements. I know Kelly has an announcement, and then if there's any other staff announcements.
I just wanted to remind all the commissioners that we do have new microphones. There's an on-off button at the base of it. If it's green, that means it's on. And please, as a reminder, to speak directly into it. They're a little touchy. And then as well to any public speakers, please speak directly into the mic so that we can hear you.
And then to the commissioners, go ahead and keep them off, and then when you want to speak, just hit the button to turn them on. Then when they're ready, you're good to go. Ernest, do you have anything? Do you have anything, sir, for staff announcements? Okay. Then I'll go ahead and do my little spiel, and then we'll get on to business. So good evening. My name is Matt Zurcher. I'm the chairperson of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'll be presiding over the commission's deliberations on hearing items this evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission sits in an advisory capacity to the Town Council and reviews planning and zoning issues and boards recommendations regarding these important issues to Council. The Commission is bound by specific regulations and guidelines for considering applications, and there's also a surprising number of things the Commission cannot take into consideration when reviewing an application. Finally, members of the Commission are volunteers, and we are not paid employees. This evening's proceedings will be conducted using the following format. First, I'll be reading the hearing application into the record. Once the application has been read into the record, staff will present the case and the recommendations to the Commission. Members of the Planning and Zoning Commission will then direct any questions they have regarding the application to staff. After the Commission completes its initial review of the application, the applicant will have an opportunity to comment regarding the matter and answer any questions. After the applicant has completed their comments, I will open the floor to general comments from the public regarding the current application being discussed. And since I know we have quite a few people here that would potentially want to speak, let me read into the record the rules for public participation. Speakers are limited to a 3-minute period. Upon the conclusion of 3 minutes, please promptly finish your remarks. If you wish to comment, please remember that you may only comment on the application being currently discussed, not on any other issue. Please direct your pertinent comments to the Commission through the chairperson and not to the applicant, staff, or individuals within the audience. Please keep your comments brief and to the point. Please try not to repeat what others have already said. Speakers cannot donate their time to another speaker. Comments or outbursts from members of the audience are not permitted. Call to the public is for discussion on anything that has not already been discussed this evening. So with that, we'll move on to business of this evening. We'll move on to item number 7, public hearing items, which is 7A. We have a zoning ordinance amendment 23-001. Upon the application of the Town of Prescott Valley, a request to amend Article 13-02, definitions in Chapter 13, zoning of the Town Code to remove reference to chickens and domestic rabbits from the definition of livestock in Town Code 13-02 in order to conform to the Chapter 6 amendments. Ernest, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. I would call this basically a house cleaning item in relation to the chickens and rabbits that were allowed at Chapter 6 amendment. There was a definition of livestock in our Chapter 13 zoning code that needed to be amended to drop bunnies and rabbits, or bunnies and chickens, and this is basically what it does.
Okay.
I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
So with this, this would go back to council, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Then at that point in time, does that, any time, like a 30-day, after that it passes, that it becomes official?
There will be a first reading this Thursday at the 13th at the council meeting. A month after that will be the second reading, and the ordinance will become effective 30 days after that, if it's not challenged, of course.
Any commissioners have any questions for staff?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment, if you will. For me, it seems that this definition might be a little bit unclear. Specifically, if we're going to exclude domestic rabbits and chickens from the definition, it looks to me that actually chickens could fall into some of these other categories. So I would like to make a recommendation to clarify this definition while we are going back and cleaning up the code. And I'm open to comments from whomever and our board here. But I would say maybe something to include, comma, excluding domestic rabbits and hens. So it's very clear that domestic rabbits and hens are allowable, and maybe add rooster into what is not allowed to be in this definition.
Ernest, did you have any comments on that?
Commissioner King, the definition changes to Chapter 13 were initiated by our legal department. We can refer your comments back to the legal department to see if that's a relevant thing to do.
Okay.
I mean, Stephen, do you want to chime in? Do you have anything to add? Okay.
I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from staff? I mean, from the commission for staff? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the amendment for zoning ordinance amendment, zoning ordinance amendment 23-001, amending Article 13-02 definitions in Chapter 13 zoning of the Town Code to remove reference to chickens and domestic rabbits from the definition of livestock?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve zoning motion A 23-001 with the discussed stipulations that it will go to legal for a clearer definition.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Rutherford,
Yes.
Commissioner Rankin,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Yes,
Commissioner Laney.
I got to stop the vote. I'm sorry, Kelly. I forgot to open the floor to public comment. My apologies. I need to stop the vote real quick. My apologies. I need to open the floor to public comment on this item. Is there anyone wishing to address the commission on this item? Seeing none, we'll come back and,
Chairman, if I might add, I think the request is not necessarily to change the definition, but re-review it, because I can assure you it's been reviewed and some of these issues have been vented. So I don't want to make any promises that it'll be
Oh,
changed, but we'll certainly review it for the concerns, if that's okay.
that would work. So Kelly, go ahead and, sorry, continue the roll call vote. My apologies.
Commissioner Laney, Vice Chairperson King,
Yes.
Chairperson Zurcher.
Yes. So moving on to action items, number 8, we have 8A, preliminary plat 23-001. Upon the application of Sage Land Holdings LLC, agent, a request for a preliminary plat for the development of approximately 542 acres of land composed of 3 contiguous parcels. The subject property is located 1 mile east of the intersection of Bradshaw Mountain Road and State Route 69, on 1 mile north of the intersection of State Route 169 and Outback Road. The project will utilize the existing R1L70 zoning to create a large lot, single-family home gated community consisting of approximately 265 homes. Presenting this evening is Ernest Ruby, Deputy Director for Development Services. Take it away, Ernest.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As you mentioned, this item is strictly a preliminary plat, preliminary development plan for the 542 acres in question. It will be approximately 254 lots now. It's been reduced a bit. Too high? stand back?
More into the mic, if you can.
Okay. Again, it's 542 acres, consisting of 254 large lots. R1L70 is the existing zoning designation, which is exactly the same designation as it was when it came in from the county when it was annexed in 2005. The properties will have about not quite even half an acre dwelling units per acre size on them. And project is located at the terminus of Bradshaw Mountain Road right now. And as you can see from your overhead or from your screen, it is surrounded almost entirely by state land, and most of the land around it is R1L70, so it's the same zoning district as what is being applied for. The project is, again, 254 units on the 542 acres. It is adjacent to Quailwood Meadows. As you can see from the overhead, there has been some discussion about the first road in from the left as you heading towards this project off of Bradshaw Mountain. And I think the applicant, the agent are ready and willing to discuss that with the commission and the audience. This is a typical lot in that R1L70 district. And keep in mind that there's 60-foot minimums for a front yard, 60-foot minimums for a backyard, and there's 30-foot minimums for side yard setbacks. There's about, on an average lot, about 70,000 square feet of building footprint. And so most of the homes in this subdivision are proposed to be between 2,400 and 5,000 square feet. So they will fit on these lots nicely and have plenty of adjacent land around them. Now, the community is intended to be kind of a rural ranch type setting with large lots and a street that is actually 50-foot wide with walking paths on both sides of the street. Permeable surface so the water can percolate there and into some of the swales that have been proposed for the project. So it will be, again, as I said, large lots, separated from the neighbors. Some of the adjacent land uses are, as I mentioned earlier, are basically R1L70, most of it controlled by the State Land Department. On the west side towards Highway 69 is the existing subdivision of Quailwood Meadows. And via Bradshaw Mountain Road would be the entrance into this project. There's been water report done for the project. There's been a sewer report done for the project. And there's been a drainage report done for the project. In terms of water, there is some capacity at the existing tank that is located just on site of this property, just to the east of the existing Quailwood Meadows site. That is being evaluated by staff as we get more information in terms of water usage, but it is assumed that in phase one there's a potential to utilize that water before a second well and water campus needs to be constructed on site or just off site. In terms of drainage, this is one that we have received a lot of questions about, and I'd like to address that for you. On the screen, you see the aerial of this area, and as you can see, there's two major washes that actually enter through this property and that are adjacent to the Quailwood Meadows subdivision. As you can see from the circles on the aerial, these are the two major points of concern for drainage. And as we talked to the applicant and his engineer about the project, drainage was looked at and evaluated, and as you can see on this slide, there are two major drainage detention basins that are proposed that will take care of those two areas, and if I may go back, that are circled on this slide. And if we look forward to the next one, we can see that there's two detention basins exactly where that confluence is, where the water runs into Quailwood Meadows. And what we're talking about here is trying to deter both the velocity and the volume of water. As that water rushes down through those washes, it is proposed to be contained in those detention basins. The upper basin is 3.51 acres. The lower basin is 2.57 acres. So altogether, a little bit over 6 acres of detention basin. And the process for a detention basin is to collect that volume of water and then to meter it out slow enough where it doesn't cause impacts downstream. And that's what this has been designed to do. In addition to those 2 basins, you can see there's 5 other basins that have been proposed, detention basins that have been proposed on site that will help do exactly the same thing. So that should help with the drainage for Quailwood Meadows, and it is required for this project that those be completed. Now, as we move on to the next slide, we see one of the conditions of approval was perfection of the secondary access road, which will run from the southeast corner of this project down along the actually section line through some private property owned by ERC and then down into Coldwater Lane. So this will be the secondary access for the project. We've recently, and there should be part of your conditions, received comments from CAFMA regarding the size and quality and composition of this secondary road. Initially, the road will be comprised of ABC, and as it moves forward in the approval process, it will be chip sealed and oiled and chip sealed eventually when the project is totally complete for a secondary access road. This exhibit actually is the one that was submitted to Arizona State Land Department, and it shows what has to be done. By perfection, we meant having those easements in place. The applicant is having to go to Arizona State Land Department and purchase that property, so it goes through the auction bidding process. We're also dealing with the town of Dewey-Humboldt to get their acquisition or their approval on this as well, and we have a private landowner, Earth Resources Corporation, that is going to be working with the applicant to try to get that perfected. Now, the timing of this road, according to CAFMA, we've been told that this road needs to be in place, ready to be utilized upon the completion or the certificate of occupancy for 31 units, in addition to 3 model homes that they're going to, that they have proposed. So it'll basically be at the 35th home, that secondary road will have to be in place, and we have a commitment from the owner that construction traffic will then traverse through that secondary access road. One thing to keep in mind is initially there's going to be what we call mobbing or mobilization of earth-moving equipment, large earth-moving equipment. This only happens once on a project when everything is brought in, and I know there was some concern on behalf of the members from Quailwood Meadows about truck traffic, but we've been assured that once the site is mobbed, as we say, mobilized, and the heavy equipment is brought on site, it will stay there until all the earth moving is done, and they can move and start their pad cutting and things of that nature. Those are the major things that we've heard from the community. I wanted to keep it short so that the applicant and his agent engineer are here to answer any questions you or the audience might have, and I'd be glad to answer any questions at this point, or I can, those can be reserved for a little bit later whenever your pleasure is.
Okay. At this time, are there any questions from the commission to staff? Commissioner Evans?
This is partly a comment and partly a couple of questions. I've got great respect for the town staff, and thank you for all the work put into these reports, and also the flexibility of the developer from what they proposed 2 years ago to what they're proposing now. That's greatly appreciated as well. My principal concern, there's a couple of them. One is, right now this proposal seems a bit rushed. I'm a rookie on the commission, but 12 conditions for the preliminary plat seems a little excessive. Any critical path is only as good as its longest lead time item. So if there's something in here, perhaps the state land process, that's going to take months. I'm not sure why we're being presented with this proposal now with 12 conditions on it. Perhaps I'm wrong. Like I say, I'm new to the commission, but it doesn't seem quite right. Another pet project of mine since I've been put on the commission is figuring out secondary access roads and what happened in a couple of instances, most especially Stone Ridge and Quailwood Meadows, and making sure that those mistakes don't carry forward to new developments. And the way it's proposed, well, for example, this map of the secondary access road, I haven't seen until 5 minutes ago. Neither have any of my colleagues on the commission. It's a serious consideration. If you look at Stone Ridge, you've got Old Black Canyon Road, which, if it's in a wet season, is a mud bogger's paradise, but not much good for a fire truck. In Quailwood, we have a secondary access road that's a joke. A fire truck would high center on that little bridge between the 15th and 16th holes of Quailwood Golf Course in an instant. Hence my concern about making sure this is done right, methodically, and with every bit of, and the other thing is, sorry for going on so long, I'm afraid that we're going to get into a parable of the boiling frog with the secondary access road. And by that I mean, if what it's going to look at the final plat, it's a promise to do something and to have something ready by the 35th home. I'm concerned, Mr. Zrake, for example, when we do the development agreement, that there are milestones to that. I've had too many times in my business experience to sit with a contract knowing there's an event of default that's going to happen in 9 months and not being able to do a darn thing about it until Armageddon shows up. So that's a concern as well that perhaps could have been taken care of with a slightly longer process in presenting all of these considerations. Like I say, in general, I think it's a good development. I have a lot of questions. 12 conditions does seem excessive. Ernest, what would be the longest lead time item, and how long would it take? Probably the State Land Trust?
Yes, sir. I think that's correct.
Any idea how long that would take?
It has been applied for. I believe the applicant will talk to you about that. It was applied for in December. So they are working through that process efficiently as they can, depending on the agencies they're working with, of course. So that it has been applied for and is anticipated to run, I believe, max was 270 days. So we're well into that now with December, January, February, March, April, almost into May. So they're quite a ways along on that.
Probably September if it's 9 months from
Could
December.
be, yeah. And keep in mind that the preliminary plat sets the stage, if you will, for the final plat, and the conditions will be in place before that final plat can be adopted by council as you condition it.
Could not, I'm sorry.
And in terms of the 12 conditions, you're right, that does seem like a lot. One of the conditions was perfection of that secondary access road. We last week received information from CAFMA as to what they required for that road, so you'll see that, I believe, in conditions 10, 11, 12. So some of those are duplicitous, I agree. The traffic impact analysis has to be in place by the time of the final plat. That's one of the things that is not required of a preliminary plat. What we require is a traffic statement and not the full-blown TIA. So that was included to make sure that it would be there as part of your conditions as you move forward to the town council. In terms of other areas of town and secondary access, we're kind of dealing with this project, trying to figure how we will work the secondary access on this project. It is a process, as you mentioned, and it's a lengthy process at times. I'm sure the applicant can speak more to it than I can at this point, being more knowledgeable about it. Hopefully that answered all your questions. If not, Commissioner Evans, I'd be glad to.
Kind of. Again, with probably the longest lead time on the critical path being September, I'm not sure why we're here in April with 12 conditions. I would much prefer to see it deferred so some of those conditions can be satisfied before we go to council, because I feel we're not doing our job as a commission by just going, here's a really full plate, council, you deal with it, we're not going to bother. So, and the secondary access road, and not just saying they will do it, and perhaps this is council's job, not the commission, but establishing milestones. Like, when the final plat is done, here's what the situation with respect to the secondary road access is going to be. By the time you've gone so far ahead, either in time or building of houses, you shall have roughed out some of the road, for example. So I'm just very concerned about this. Maybe it's a personal foible, but I think we're rushing.
I appreciate that, Commissioner, and with all due respect, that is the basis for the conditions, so that at final plat, everything that's presented to the council will be in order, if you will. So there's a lead time for some of those things, and it sometimes is a moving target. Some of the engineering is changing. The town is working on a master drainage study that will incorporate this study into, make sure that it's in direct correlation with the master drainage study. So I appreciate what you're saying, I understand that, but that is kind of the basis for some of those conditions. Again, for example, the traffic impact analysis, it will be in place and ready for review long before it goes to council. It's in the process now. I believe we may have someone speak to it from the applicant side at this point and speak to any of those conditions that you might have. Some are kind of mundane, like the Parks and Rec wants those trails there, and of course the impact fees. So some of those are probably duplicitous at best, but there are things that needed to be put in place as we move forward to give the developer some comfort as to what he's going to be required to do as we move down the road as well.
Okay. I'll stop occupying the floor for now, but I'm strongly inclined later on to vote to defer this, but we'll see how it goes with the other comments and my other commissioners' comments. Thank you very much, Ernest. I appreciate your time.
Commissioner Rankin, did you have a question at all?
Well, probably just following up with the conditions 10, 11, and 12, it just seems like those are going to be, or could be extended. I mean, even number 12 that says that the secondary access will be installed upon completion of the final home. Holy cow, that could be years down the road.
Commissioner Rankin, if I may, that condition states that the road will be oiled and chip sealed upon completion of the entire project. Prior to that, upon the 35th certificate of occupancy, the road will be in place. It will be the ABC composition, 20-foot wide, ready to accommodate any fire trucks or trucks of that size and weight. So that oil and chip seal is upon full completion of the project, so it will become a regular road.
Is there anything that can say that all construction traffic can travel on that road?
One of the conditions does mention that, Commissioner, if you will. I believe it's condition 10 or 11, but it does say that after the 35th home is ready to start and they've received certificates of occupancy for the previous 34, that road will be built and construction traffic will be solely limited to that road.
Okay, well, I don't think it says exactly that, but I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Griffiths?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ruby, will you go back to the retention pond slide, please?
Yes, ma'am.
One down in the left-hand corner. On my map, it looks like it's encroaching, if that's the right word to use, into Yavapai County property.
Are you ready for me to respond? Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, it is actually in a 100-foot county strip
Right.
that is owned by the Fanes, so they're able to utilize that for that, not only the detention basin, but there also will be a multi-use walking path along that way that will help link up with our loop that's going around the city. So that is conditioned to be not only dedicated as easement, but to be built. And that's within that 100-foot county strip, if you will.
So that 100-foot county strip will give our retention pond enough room and the trail access as well?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff from the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Go for it.
Thank you. Mr. Ruby, I do want to say thank you for the updated conditions of approval. I had a lot of those questions in my mind coming here tonight, and this has answered quite a few of them, so I truly appreciate your hard work and effort to update us.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate that, and I do apologize for the timeliness of those, but we continue to receive information, and I wanted you to get it as quickly as possible.
Appreciate it, sir.
Ernest, just out of curiosity, just so we can show it to the public, do we have a audio visual of the conditions?
I don't believe I have a couple of handouts. I don't believe we did an overhead. Apologize for that.
Okay. With that, just real quick, I think it's prudent then that we read these just for, for the public. So this is Parsons Preserve updated conditions of approval. A, prior to approval of any final development plan plat, the following conditions apply. Number 1, traffic impact analysis, TIA, will be required. Number 2, updated water and sewer master plans to show that the town systems are capable of serving the increased loading. Number 3, updated drainage report incorporating Prescott Valley Master Drainage Plan update if completed and approved prior to final plat application. Number 4, participation in the historical buy-in requirement for the Quailwood Lift Station as determined by the town utility director at the historical pro rata buy-in rate based on impacts of approximately 254 units. Number 5, concurrence of the town utilities director for finalization of the new 305,000-gallon water tank and the analysis of the capacity of the existing water tank capability to serve Phase 1. Concurrence of the town utilities director for the finalization of this is number 6, by the way, of proposed new well and water campus facilities. Number 7, perfection of the secondary road access, but not limited to the town of Dewey, Humboldt, and Arizona State Land Department and private property owners. Number 8, community development services, parks and recreation approval for location and specifications of multi-use purpose trails and open space. Number 9, park impact fees will be required for the development at a rate commensurate with park impact fees for new residential subdivisions in the town. Number 10, secondary access road will be completed after the issuance of the 34th certificate of occupancy for the project per CAFMA. Number 11, all construction traffic will be via secondary access road upon completion of the secondary emergency access road per Brown Homes. And number 12, minimum standards for the secondary access road will be 2 lanes with a total width of 20 feet comprised of ABC during phases 1 through 5, oil and chip seal installed upon the completion of the final home per CAFMA. So that is the final condition. Commissioner Evans.
Not to beat a dead horse, but the fact that we did not have all of these conditions available to both the commissioners and the general public 15 days prior to this meeting, the chairman was quite kind to read them into the minutes and read them. I'd like anybody tell me what number 10 is? They're not going to know. Again, just making my point that this meeting, this consideration of this preliminary plat should be deferred, in my opinion, for at least 2 to 3 months till a lot of these conditions are solved.
Understood. Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other comments, questions for staff from the commission? Commissioner Rutherford?
This might better be addressed to the owner, but I'm wondering, as units are completed and title is passed, is there any provision for retention of funds to assure the completion of the secondary access?
The owner is here, and then I'm sure he'd be glad to address that, ma'am. I don't have that information.
Any other questions of staff at this point?
Mr. Chair, the applicant, his agent are here, his engineer is here, ready to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Okay.
I would invite him up now.
All right, sounds good. Sir, go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Chairperson, Commission, my name is John Carlson. I'm with Espiritu Loci. We're a land planning firm.
Go ahead and say your last name for us one more time.
Carlson, here on behalf of Brown Homes Sage Development. We have a presentation that we could share some additional information. Mr. Ruby did a wonderful job, but hopefully we can shed just a bit more light on what's being proposed.
Please.
So we're here tonight where we... Thank you. The step of the process that we think we're in tonight is this is a subdivision request. It's not a request for rezoning, but rather just a subdivision request, which is a procedural application. We've met with the town staff and did the preliminary application. We followed that with the preliminary plat. And here we think we're at the green square where we're asking for commission approval of the subdivision application.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Can I ask you to speak a little bit further into my... They're having trouble hearing you.
My pleasure. Yep. Is this better? There. How about that?
Perfect, okay.
From there, we'll go into the final plat and developing the improvement plans. That's the next step. Once we have confirmation of preliminary plat, those final details will be reviewed and adjusted. The engineering plans and the master reports will be re-reviewed and adjusted based on what the actual improvement plans as they are determined, as they're fine-tuned. This is really the proof of concept. And hey, this is going down the right road. We're meeting all the standards of the town code. Next step would be approval of this and then to commission or to council for that. For the community, Mr. Ruby mentioned where we're at, what's around us. When we look at the plan, this is an conceptual illustrated concept. It's based on the lotting that Mr. Ruby shared, and you can see the roads and the large lots, and really what's driving this is when we looked at American Ranch, a large lot community over in Williamson Valley, how much nature and the existing landscape is really the driver for how the character and community feel. And so that's what this was mimicked after. We see that there's wash corridors that are remaining. The roads follow the wash corridor patterns, and the large lots then kind of respond to topography so that we can let Mother Nature do what Mother Nature does best, tell us where to put things like the water, and then be able to manage it as we go forward. In the center of the property is the existing water tank. Just below that is a little lookout perch. That perch is an open space so that there can be a trail to hike up, look at the sunset, enjoy the beautiful views that we have here in Prescott, in the town of Prescott Valley. It is a gated community. There's a gate at Bradshaw Mountain proposed and another gate down at the secondary access, emergency access point. Those will be controlled with Opticon, and so that's something that CAFMA uses. That's in the police cars and the fire trucks, so that when they arrive to a gate, it'll open for them automatically. A bit about the inspiration, American Ranch here, you can see that the roads are kind of curvilinear. What's really neat about the road system here is that how much it blends in with the setting. This is where the idea came from the path and trail system, a 6-foot wide path and trail along each side. They do a little bit of enhancement with the landscape at the entry. This is also a gated entry. This one includes turf. We're not proposing turf, but we would propose a bit of an enhancement to the landscape. Again, using the native plant material as the base to do that. And then there's also community trail kind of weaving back and around, and then you also see some cul-de-sacs up on the top right side. On the left here is actually an aerial of American Ranch, and on the right is the comparison of what's being proposed for Parsons Preserve. Again, large lot community, long driveways, homes set back at least 60 feet on the lot. You can see how the homes are almost like they're in a what we call a building envelope. And so it's just the area around the home that is being enhanced with the landscape around the home, and then the rest of the lot is really left to be in its natural condition. The same is proposed in Parsons Preserve. Mr. Ruby mentioned the lot size, so we'll pass on that real fast. Brown Homes is the home builder. They've been building homes in Arizona for over 46 years. These are some examples of homes that they've built that could be built here in Parsons Preserve. They're also very conscious of what the green elements are that are included in the home. So tight building envelopes, low flow, water sense elements like low flow toilets, water fixtures, shower heads, an option for tankless hot water heaters, the ability, if they want to do a tank water heater, to include recirculation pumps, and also irrigation using plant material that's native to the character, low water plant material, drip irrigation, automatic timer. So we're all getting these elements that we expect in homes and environmental quality these days. Landscape character, path and trail, this is really the character that we're after. Soft trail is really what's driving this. When we're out in kind of a rural character neighborhood, it's not the hard path surface like we would find in an urban situation, but really the soft elements that lets the trail blend in. And when we look at where the trails are proposed in the subdivision, around every street, so everywhere where it's brown around the street, that would be a 6-foot wide trail. And if we need to install a little bit of lime in there to help solidify it, kind of give it a little bit harder texture to prevent erosion, that would be easily added. Up at the gate at Bradshaw Mountain, it's purple. That would be a continuation of the 10-foot multi-use path that's already there, and then that transition would change to the trail at the gate. And then on the bottom in the south 100-foot strip, that's the green line. That's the link of the trail system that would be part of the greater town of Prescott Valley system. Proposed there's an 8-foot wide soft trail with the alignment to be determined in the field, so that we're working around if we have some existing veg or something like that we need to work around. By all means, we'd want to do that. There's also water and sewer lines that'll be down there, and so there'll be a combination of using the water and sewer line alignment along with the trail. From the trail, it actually connects into the neighborhood just on the west side of Outback, where it could run up and through and connect out, and then eventually continue if the town decided into the state land piece to the east. We looked at Iron King Trail, and the Peavine Trail is kind of the inspiration of why soft trails, how does the town of Prescott Valley do trails, and we looked just outside of Jasper and how they did it there. The streets we mentioned, how they're just blending in, letting it be the non-thing there, let the landscape that's there be the thing, and just how they're curvilinear winding around. For the street section, 50-foot wide right-of-way, 28 feet of pavement, and the 6-foot trail on each side with a swale on each side to then carry the drainage. The secondary access would be the emergency access from the southwest corner of the property coming down. Cold water alignment, the section line cold water alignment, as Mr. Ruby mentioned. A little bit more detail. I think Mr. Ruby talked about this. If there's more questions, we'd be happy to answer, but we have been coordinating with the State Land Department, with CAFMA, with the landowner to figure out the quickest way through this process. The application is in with the state, and based on some of their comments, they asked for a T intersection up at the top to be able to access. They have a 40-acre piece up here, and so it'd just be a T intersection that they're asking for to coordinate there. Other than that, they've been on board with everything we've talked about and have seen all of this and are working through their review and approval process. Drainage. So as Mr. Ruby mentioned, there's the 7 different drainage basins. These are all detention basins. These are looking at a pre versus post analysis. The 2 that are up along Quailwood Meadows are highlighted in green here. Then there's also the green strip, which represents where there'll be some swales that'll be rebuilt. There's a 25-foot grading and drainage easement along that boundary that would remain in place, and the swales would be rebuilt as part of the project. There's 2 sections up there, Section A and Section B, that we'll touch on in a moment. Looking more closely, just as on what we're calling Road 101, it's the road just at the continuation of Bradshaw Mountain. As it heads north, there's the green line kind of coming down and across. That's a representation of where the swale would be rebuilt. And over on the right side of the page is a typical detail of that swale. So on top is how it exists now, which is basically a V channel coming off right after the property line. And what's proposed as the typical is there's a 2-foot bench, and then it comes down for a 2-foot wide bottom. And the depth of the channel is based on the hydraulics, and that hydraulics is based on the final development plans and the studies and the analysis that all our engineers are very good at doing. When we look at it in section, so this is just below, this is in tract 2A. It's just below the green line. There's no green line there because what's being proposed is that the water sheds from the property line of Quailwood Meadows and Parsons Preserve towards the street. And what that would look like is this scenario where the home is 76 feet away from the roadway. There's a 41-foot landscape track between the wall and the street right-of-way. And you can see the grades kind of just falling down and being tapered down into the swale along the roadway. This is where we're showing in this section is a 6-foot trail on this side. Per our conversations with city staff, we've talked about removing that and instead enhancing landscape in that tract. We did another section. This is just a little bit further south. As you can see, the home is 45 feet away. This is again along Road 101, north of Bradshaw Mountain Road. Again, taking away that 6-foot trail on the west side of the road and instead putting in landscape, mature landscape, and strategically placing landscape to be able to work with the neighbors. The detention basins, as Mr. Ruby mentioned, the big red area is the detention basin. This is where the initial flush of water comes. From that flush of water, it goes in the basins. Then there's the light blue line, which is the road. That's it's a metering element where all the water that comes into the basin is then metered through under the road. And the blue area is erosion protection. And so whatever's going through is not then eating away at whatever's next. And so it's just the engineering model for how that works. Similarly, as we get down further south in the Whistle Wash, this is the other big basin that's coming through. And the same scenario happens. Everything that's coming down the wash is first absorbed into that detention basin and then metered out with erosion protection on the outside of the metering. That was a lot. Here we have, just briefly touch on water and sewer. There's 2 pressure zones in the property. There's the north pressure zone and the south pressure zone, as well call it, or east pressure zone, west pressure zone. That blue dashed line cutting through, that's the definition of the pressure zone boundary. And so everything that's on the lower end of the pressure zone, in theory, is served by the existing tank. Everything that's on the upper end of the pressure zone is then provided by the new tank. The new tank is proposed somewhere up in the section here. That location will be determined with the town, with the confirmation of the Arizona Department of Water Resources. Sewer, similarly, is on the gravity system where it can gravity down. It gravities and then connects into Bradshaw Mountain, the existing town system. And then further south, we run into where there isn't a place to sewer, so a lift station would be installed, and that would then bring it back up to then connect back into the town system. And then phasing, we look at phasing. Phasing starts up in Alf Bradshaw Mountain. There's the yellow area. That yellow area is where the models are being proposed. There's 6 lots in that area, 3 of which we think will be models off to start. And the phase 2 is the green area up at the top corner, and then we go 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that's an overview of Parsons Preserve.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Any questions for the applicant from the commission? Commissioner Rankin.
Obviously, you spent a lot of time and energy in this. My question is with the amount of conditions that we're asking for, you're coming tonight asking for a preliminary plan approval from us. What limitations do you have in the conditions that you have to go through that you cannot accomplish without our preliminary plan approval? Or are there hindrances without it? Can you kind of give us some feedback on that?
Yep. Chair, Commission, when I read these conditions, I actually read them much like boilerplate conditions. They're all things that naturally occur as development. Refining the reports, updating the reports, providing the TIA, securing the secondary alignment. Those are all things that would be typical of a preliminary plat, and it's almost the purpose of the preliminary plat. There are some that I think are duplicative, that if it was just purely a number thing, we could easily rewrite them and combine them to narrow down the number. But as a hindrance, I think these are all things that we're planning on accomplishing as part of this process.
So are there, if you don't have this preliminary plat approval, what limitations does that put on you?
I'm not sure I fully understand what you're asking.
Well, I'm saying if we delay the preliminary plat approval, which has been discussed, what hindrance does that put on you in the progression of developing this project?
Chair, Commission, I guess I would ask what the delay would be based on the standards of the town. So this is a procedural process, this is an administrative process. And if we're meeting the town standards and a condition is part of the town standard, I would think that's just part of the process. I would ask for a recommendation tonight.
Any other commissioners have questions for the applicant? I do have a few, if you're okay. Kind of going on to the timeline of the building of the catch basins, I would imagine those would be done rather quickly in the building process?
Chair, yes, because they're part of Phase 1 and Phase 2, they would be part of the initial improvements.
And I know, just for the record, we met with Ron and Brad Fain several weeks ago discussing this project. During that meeting, we had discussed, due to the Opticon system controlling the gates, that Quailwood, in the event of an emergency where Bradshaw would become inaccessible, and to make basically the Quailwood Meadows subdivision a conforming subdivision, that Quailwood residents would be able to utilize the roads and get to that secondary, utilize the secondary, emergency access.
Chair, yes, because it's controlled by the fire and the police department. The fire and the police determine there's an emergency, they have the complete ability to open it up.
All I have. Commissioner Evans?
You're proposing that the secondary access road be 20 feet wide, correct?
Chair, Commission, correct, yeah.
Okay, all the interior roads are 28 feet wide. They're going to be meandering little back and forth from the grocery store or work roads. Why are those less traveled roads and less prone to emergency roads so much narrow, and even for construction traffic, I don't know if 20 feet wide, if two large trucks can get by each other. Is there any probability that the secondary access road could at least match the 28-foot width of the roads within the community, just for safety and construction access reasons?
Chair, Commissioner, I think that's something we could look at. The 20-foot width is based on recommendations for CAFMA to meet their minimum requirements for emergency access. It's a secondary emergency access only road. That's why 20 feet is proposed.
Except it's not going to be secondary emergency access only. It's going to be construction for many years, right?
And correction, yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner King?
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. I think that was an excellent presentation, very much welcomed. I'm also pretty tall, so I have to hold that mic, so there's that. I do, after seeing this presentation, have some additional questions regarding Road 101 and where the gate is going to lie. I don't believe that I saw them on the plans previously. Can you go back to the slide? I think there was a G on it where the gate's going to be.
Yes.
We could just check that out really quickly. Okay, excellent. So I see here, it looks like that the gate is set back. Now, my question is with respect to that Road 101, that road is currently slotted to lay outside the gate? Okay, is there a reason for that?
Chair, Commission, yes, so the Whistle Wash is coming right through there. And so there's just the natural drainage corridor that we're trying to get past and then put the gate. It's kind of a function of development. Otherwise we're doing the biggest impact right over the top of the wash, and we're trying to minimize that impact as much as we can. That's why the gate's located just after.
Okay, excellent, that makes sense, thank you for that. Now, so the residents that currently live in Quailwood, that this is going to be in their backyard, they are, used to something that's a little bit more open, beautiful terrain, and so now they're gonna have a road in their backyard. Is there a way to bring that road inside the gate? Like maybe having it route through Does that make sense to you? Do you see what I'm saying, just functionally?
Chair, Commission, yeah, I absolutely understand what you're saying. It would be a bit of a challenge because we're trying to respond to the lay of the land. And this is a triangular piece that's really defined by that wash. And so that's why the land plan is being proposed like that.
Okay, so the proposed homeowners who buy these lots, 109 through, well, I guess it's 101 through 109, they would lie outside the gate.
That's correct.
Okay. I do agree with Commissioner Evans' comments that there are a lot of stipulations here, but I do also understand that a lot of these also are boilerplate, and it's just the function and the nature of how these administrative proceedings move forward. I think it's very important that we hit also on that, as Chairman Zurcher noted, that there is a possibility with respect to the second access road that the Quailwood residents would be able to use that road, the gates would open if there is an emergency.
Correct, with Opticon and the ability for the police and fire department to operate them, absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have.
Commissioner Rutherford?
Mr. Chairman, perhaps I missed it, but I didn't hear an answer to my question about retention of in escrow to guarantee the completion of the secondary access road.
Chair, Commission, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that question. I don't control the dollars. I'm sorry.
Is there anybody here that could answer that?
I think it's something that we could bring back and study.
Someone's going to try to attempt to answer that for you, Rutherford. Sir, you'll have your chance. No, not right now, sir. Not right now, sir. And sir, go ahead and state your name for the record.
Craig Helsing with Brown Homes.
All right, go ahead and raise that up just a little bit if you want. Hold it up if you like.
Good evening, Chair and Commission members. Okay, so on the question of monetary consideration for the completion of the secondary access, I don't think that we are at that place yet in this process. Typically, in the final plat and improvements, the necessary bonds, not just for the secondary access, but other improvements within the subdivision, are required as a condition of the final plat. I'm sure you know, but as you near the completion of the final plat, it's customary, and I may not be as well versed in Prescott Valley procedures, but typically those bonds need to be placed in the town's possession prior to the recording of the final plat. I know it doesn't fully answer your question, but those engineering costs will be part of the final plat and improvement plan process.
Thank you. Commissioner Rutherford, does that do it for you?
That's a satisfactory answer, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson, let me come back to the drainage detention ponds. I've just seen detention ponds, built through town, and one of the issues, and I know concerns from a lot of the community members, is standing water, especially during the monsoons. And of course, with standing water comes mosquitoes. And I know, of course, you're going to be regulating, the withdrawal of water through the washes. Is there any plans to mitigate, if there is standing water, to mitigate for mosquitoes?
Chair, if there were mosquitoes, yes, the HOA would then be responsible for figuring out a way to mitigate that element. Line engineering is doing our evaluation on all the basins. The basins are then reviewed by the town, and so we should be avoiding that altogether.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions from the commission for the applicant? Ernest, do you have anything more to add real quick before we take it to the public?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair, available for questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carlson, and if anyone has questions from public comment, we'll invite you back up so you can answer those.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point in time, I'll open the floor to public comment. Deborah Winter is the HOA president for the Quailwood Meadows subdivision.
Let me start by thanking you for the opportunity to speak.
I introduced you, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and
Yes,
state your
you
name for the
did.
record.
My name is Debbie Winter, and I'm the current president of the Quailwood HOA Master Board. Let me start by thanking you for the opportunity to speak prior to your vote on the preliminary plat of Parsons Preserve. Of major concern to Quailwood is the flow of water into the Whistle Wash, a FEMA-designated special flood hazard area. The wash flows east of Quailwood on what is to be Parsons Preserve land, with two forks that run through the Quailwood development. We have just received a report from J.E. Fuller Hydrology and Geomorphology Engineers, an engineering firm hired by Quailwood to perform a scour analysis. The report indicates that we have some concerning erosion occurring on both forks of Whistle Wash flowing into our property. Any increased runoff in Whistle Wash, meaning increases in velocity, volume, or duration of the flow of water, will accelerate erosion already occurring on Quailwood property. Your handout indicates a depiction of the 5-year and 100-year inundation areas for the North Fork of Whistle Wash. The red portion of your handout depicts the Whistle Wash at a 5-year inundation. Please note that the wash also flows onto Bradshaw Mountain Road. This has actually happened at least twice in the last 3 years. In addition, your handout includes the executive summary of the J.E. Fuller report and a copy of this presentation for reference purposes. In addition to Whistle Wash, a collection ditch runs behind the homes on the eastern perimeter of Quailwood and has both flooded and saturated the soils present to an extent where property walls have been compromised. Any additional drainage or saturation will cause further damage to be incurred. Prescott Valley's Uniform Drainage Standards and Policy Document, Section 2.6.7, makes the following statement. The improvements presented in a master drainage plan shall not adversely impact adjacent property owners. In order to help ensure this, we are requesting an amendment to condition number 3 so that it reads as follows. Updated drainage report incorporating PV master drainage plan update, information from the J.E. Fuller Scour analysis report contracted by Quailwood Meadows, and a review by a qualified third-party technical reviewer. We would further request that an additional condition be placed on approval of the final plat stating, no construction will take place to the west of Whistle Wash, and no SFHA variance will be given to the developer unless recommended by a qualified third-party technical reviewer. Thank you for your attention to our concerns and requests.
Debbie, I do have some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Since you are the HOA president, has the applicant met with you at numerous occasions about this project?
They have met with a steering committee that was formed by the HOA on numerous occasions.
Okay. How about yourself? And
I have been in attendance at those meetings.
with regard to the drainage issues, especially this report, is this the first time everyone's been seeing this report?
Yes, it is. J.E. Fuller just completed the report last week. I got it at 3 a.m. Friday morning,
Okay.
which is why you didn't have handouts to be shown on the overhead screen, which I apologize for.
Not a problem. So just want to, make sure for the record, so you have not had a chance to meet with the applicant with regard to this new study?
No, we have not.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up. And I'm guessing you're Don Lorette, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And so Don, I always ask this, but go ahead, even though I know your name, because I have it here, but go ahead and just state your name for the record, please.
My name is Don Lorette, Lorett.
And what is, from what I understand, you are the chair of the Community Steering Committee with regard to this project?
Correct. The steering committee is an extension from the committee that started with the PV 540, which I know all of you were a part of. The PV 540, our community group put together a large group of people participating in studying that preliminary proposal of PV 540 and brought several information to that. That is extended into now, when that went away and changed to Parkersburg, we started the steering committee basically out of the members that were left and to continue in with that process. So with that, thank you for opportunity to speak on behalf of the residents of Quailwood. I want to thank our committee members that we've had that participated on the steering committee, put a lot of time in, as well as the ones that were on the former committee, and some of those are here tonight. Many hours to overview and look and try and decipher, not necessarily to stop the project, but to make sure that we're doing responsible growth according to our neighborhood, as well as what's happening within Prescott Valley. So nobody here today is trying to question the project being completed. It's about the timing and the process, which we've heard already. I can tell you one of our biggest concerns are the fact that we're just seeing new information today. We have not, as a community or citizens, people, been able to review some of the maps, the designs, some of the things that are going on, have an opportunity to look at the challenges it might bring within our current residents. So I know that it's, everybody's happy that it's not the 2,200 homes. I think it was, that was very alarming for us, for Prescott Valley. The growth is good, but responsible growth is certainly what we're looking at. However, it's still development of 540 acres. That's a large piece of property, and that doesn't change because there's only 252 lots. There's still a lot of that process that still takes place. So we want to make sure we handle that in the same way. And part of that is it's doing it in a timely fashion, allowing you guys to do your job as well, because we are holding you accountable as citizens for those assurances that we are moving forward with that. I know it's a conditional, somebody said it's an approval, but it sounds to me like it's a conditional approval. I'm not sure we've clarified that tonight. Since there's 12 conditions, are you guys looking at is the commission going to look at a conditional approval, or is there an approval vote at the end? Do you know that?
This is a preliminary application, so this is
Right.
preliminary approval.
So is it a conditional approval on the preliminary?
So, Mr. Rutt, these conditions would be a part of the preliminary approval and then go to final approval.
Okay. All right, so a couple of the concerns that have been brought up prior to this, some of them have changed over the current information, which obviously we don't have enough time to review. We're requesting the look at the utilization of Coldwater Lane now as construction traffic. We have a major concern that Bradshaw Mountain Road is the only main utilization for school children traffic in the morning, for our main access to our HOA, our rec center. It's our main access road for citizens using it for trail and walking. We have major concern for that process. I know the developer is using the 34th home. I would like to reiterate what I've heard back from some of you, that what is that date? How long is that? And if that, to me, it sounds like from fire and safety is a minimum standard. It's not necessarily what should be done. There's nothing been stated by the developer or the town about developing that road as soon as possible. The permits are done. If they can get it built, why wait to the 34th home?
Definitely, we can get that answered.
Yeah. And so we're looking for assistance with that. The 2035 long-range plan mentioned talking about the safety and quality of life for current residents adjacent to any new development. And I would say this applies to that. So I'd ask you to take a long look at that to see how this project is going to alter, change
Mr.
quality
Leonard,
of life.
your time's expired, but definitely go ahead and finish up.
Okay. The question next becomes the public road that has been changed or been added. That's Public Road 101 or whatever we just heard about. This greatly changes privacy factors for our residents on the east side. We know that they've tried to provide some privacy issues for us, but allowing a road that's now not in a gated community that has been projected as a gated community, now there's a public road too. It adds a hard surface water drainage system next to our challenging drainage system we already have. That property runs, that road runs north to south, which will add water resistance to that. It also provides now a natural public trail. The trail system that you're building next to the roads now will allow any public access for people walking that trail, and that was going to greatly reduce the privacy of that 101 road that you're asking about. It also brings some questions about traffic. There's an intersection. You have Villa Street right there. You have one house, and now you have 101, and then you have the road coming in from the gated community with that. So due to the lack of completing all necessary work on the storm drainage and flood mitigation system, all that information that needs to be taken and looked at, the request by town utilities for no approvals until that work is done, the failure to allow PV citizens to review the new TIA prior to this meeting approval, the new conditions that were added tonight, not a chance to review those, the building of public road in a gated community that will reduce privacy to Bradshaw Mountain Road and residents of that, along with the safety and quality of life. The things that have been brought up, all the things, the rush to this, it was a great concern. We are asking for a deferred decision tonight on this.
Thank you, Ms. Lorette. I appreciate your comments. Let me just ask you a quick question. Compared to PV 540, which was 2,200 homes, is your committee more in favor of this project or in favor of this project as opposed to the 2,200 homes?
Hopefully I was clear about that. We are not, nobody's here to stop the project. Yes, we feel very trending in a very positive manner. Feel like it's going to be a beautiful community for our Prescott Valley. It'll fit some of our residents, I think, need in that. So we're in favor of this, but we feel there are some challenges that need to be looked at to help make sure to maintain the quality for our citizens that currently live here. And especially with the water drainage, we're suffering financial challenges, not just homeowners, but the town of Prescott Valley is digging into their pockets to try and fix some of that water management system. So we just want to make sure you guys have enough time as well as we do to look at all the aspects of it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, Tom?
Don, go ahead. We have another question from the,
What's his name? Tom?
I'm used to
Don,
it.
I'm so sorry.
I've been called a lot worse, a lot different, so I'll take Tom.
Tom.
Don.
Thank you very much for your statement. What is your number one item of concern? Number one, biggest.
I would say maintaining the quality of life for our citizens, but not increasing the financial burden of them, which would change their financial. We have citizens right now that are going to dig in their pockets for property damage because water drainage system that was started in 2005 has caused property damage that they're digging into their pockets right now with a major problem with that. And that's just the beginning. We've just identified those. There's more coming. So when I have to give up money, my quality of life changes. So it's a combined issue to me. I'm sorry.
So the drainage issues occurred in your property area prior to any of this work being done?
Correct. Currently, if you didn't build Parson Preserve, we have issues happening right now within the Quailwood. A lot of that is from whistle washes, all of those, that water management. And so we have to deal with those anyway. And now we want to make sure they don't increase because we know hard surfaces can increase the amount of water flow. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I should look.
anybody else? All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Lawyer. Anybody else? Anyone else wishing to speak? Come on up, sir. Go ahead and state your name for the record, please.
Ron Brasgala, and my concerns, and some others have been already addressed, it is still about the secondary road that it would be completed at the 35th unit. And now, it was stated earlier that the major construction comes in first and stays. Supply trucks for every single house of the first 35 will be up and down Bradshaw Mountain Road. and that is a big concern for me.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
what would you like to have done? What is your vision for this?
My vision would be the secondary road completed beforehand so that all the
Folks,
supply
please.
vehicles, so that all the supply vehicles would be utilizing that. It also would make it a lot safer for the kids that go to school, that walk on that road. You know, it's a safety concern. And we know that construction vehicles, not construction, excuse me, supply vehicles, their main thing is to get the supply to the location and get out. And they don't really pay attention to the speed limit. That becomes a big risk to the citizens in Quailwood.
So when you say have the road completed,
Yes, have the secondary road completed, yes, so that all the supplies coming in for those 35 houses, I mean, those supplies are not going to come in one lump and sit. It's going to be house by house by house by house, 35 times until that secondary road is done. My suggestion that secondary road done is completed first. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jim Hall, and
Jim, go ahead and raise the mic up.
okay, a lot of what I'm saying, I think other people have said too. I'm concerned with Bradshaw Mountain Road and what I see as a shifting pattern. When the 2023 plan was submitted for review, it included Bradshaw Mountain Road being held to its 3-lane width and an access lock gate on the end for emergency only. Once it was approved and submitted and released, that access was removed from the end so it could be gone through. That's the way the 2023 plan was finished and approved. So someplace it made a change there. A couple months ago, the mayor came over to Quailwood and presented a discussion on Parsons Preserve, and at that point in time, he said Bradshaw Mountain Road would be a lock gate until the first home was released for sale. All construction traffic would come in through the secondary access. And now we're getting a change from that, and I think some of us are getting concerned on where the next shift is and whether in fact that secondary access will ever be built, if that's a second one. If the council required that, come back to one step to the mayor's plan of lock that gate for emergency until lots are ready to be released. Let all construction come in through the secondary road. That will force that secondary road to be built and to be built well. It won't be the Old Black Mountain Highway mud bog. The developers are going to have committed to build it anyway, so whether they build it first or last, not a whole lot of difference on their pocket. Let it be done. Once the construction is done and all of the heavy stuff, then we can open that gate and let people come through, let the residential traffic through to Parsons.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Bill Marshall. I live in Quailwood. Now, we've all seen when they start a project, whether it's small, big, it doesn't matter, the heavy earth-moving equipment, very large. We've all seen the project that's going on at the corner of Fain and 69. Takes a very long time, very big, very heavy equipment. That's going to have to build all of the infrastructure before anything gets built. Okay, and we're talking about 35 homes before that other road gets built, okay? That's a condition that we talked about, or they talked about tonight. That is extreme heavy equipment, minimum, probably a year to get all of that ready, all the infrastructure done, and then they're going to start to build houses. It seems unreasonable, especially in the 2035-year plan. They downgraded Bradshaw Mountain Road from arterial, I don't know the exact legal term, but they downgraded Bradshaw Mountain Road to a smaller, I believe the term Bruce Evans was talking about. So here we are downgrading Bradshaw Mountain Road in the 2035 plan, and now we have this really large amount of earth-moving equipment coming down that road for quite a while. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Now, I think we've all heard you with regard to the concerns on Bradshaw. Anybody else wishing to speak? Come on up.
Just very quickly.
State your name for the record.
Sandy Marshall, and I do live in Quailwood. Just very quickly, people are talking about Bradshaw Mountain Road. The one thing they haven't mentioned is the children and the park that we have there. And we have kids walking up and down, riding bicycles and all of that. And I'm very concerned about heavy traffic trucks and all of these kids, because you've got kids that are pretty young with even younger brothers and sisters crossing the street and going across, going to the park. And I think this should be a big consideration of how they're going to utilize and what they're going to utilize Bradshaw Mountain Road for, because I can see a disaster. And the reason I'm bringing this up now, because I just saw almost a disaster the other day with 5 kids, with a couple of little kids with them, and crossing the street, and a car had to screech to a stop. Okay, so that is a huge concern of mine, is using Bradshaw Mountain Road, okay, because of all the families that we have in the neighborhood and all the kids that we have. And I think the committee here should take that into strong consideration of the use of Bradshaw Mountain Road.
Anybody else? Seeing none, going once, going twice. All right. We will close the floor to public comments. I'm going to invite both the applicant and staff to come up, since we have two podiums and 2 mics. Both of you come on up, please. Carlson, real quick, Bradshaw is probably one of the biggest concerns, as well as drainage. And of course, with this new drainage study, are you willing to have a secondary community meeting to sit down and discuss this with them?
Chairman, absolutely, we'd be happy to meet with the HOA. We've been having conversations with them. Mr. Tom Bilstein from our team has been reaching out to them consistently, and so that's not a problem at all.
Because this is the first time you've seen this report, we've seen this report, et cetera, would you be open to a continuance?
Mr. Chair, respectfully, I think we can have the conversation with the HOA while working through final development plans, and that would be part of the conditions already proposed, and it's just working through that.
And then, Mr. Carlson, with regard to the secondary access road, if you can explain, from what I'm understanding, the 34th residence is part of the fire code, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That was part of the conversation, sorry, Mr. Chair, that was part of the conversation that we had with CAFMA,
okay,
and part of the agreement. That's why they were added on. As we got information from CAFMA, we shared that, and that was 31 homes that are occupied, and 3 of them are models.
So one of the challenges right now that you face is that currently you do not have approval from state land or the town of Dewey-Humboldt to actually build the secondary access road.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. That's why one of the conditions that's being proposed.
And so, Ernest, real quick, if for whatever reason, and this is just, hypothetical, I'm not, just want to toss that out there. Let's say they don't get approval from the town of Dewey-Humboldt or the state. What happens then?
The project stops, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With regard to construction traffic on Bradshaw, do you want to answer, or just, discuss any of the concerns that the residents brought up?
Mr. Chair, I certainly understand safety. We try to right-size infrastructure so that there's not cars and vehicles that are speeding on roadways. I think our trucks will be traveling at a slower pace because of how much weight they're carrying, and it's an initial load to the site. Following that, there'll be far more vehicle traffic on Bradshaw Mountain Road than there would be construction traffic. And absolutely, once the secondary emergency access is improved, that construction traffic moves off of Bradshaw Mountain and down to the Coldwater extension.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Ernest.
Bradshaw Mountain was built to arterial standards with the width and the construction of it as an arterial. With the general plan update, the 2035 general plan update, it was reduced to a collector status. It doesn't change the construction of the road other than it was narrowed down. And also, it was removed as a through street. So originally, the street was going to continue through what is now the Bradshaw or the Parsons Preserve project into the state lands. So that has been eliminated to only this project. And one of the things to mention is this is an allowed by right use. The conditions that are applied to the project are just to make it move forward to the final plat stage with those conditions, making sure that things have been addressed. So in terms of a discretionary approval, if you will, that's not what the applicant is asking for. He's simply asking for this to move forward with some blemishes, I think we will all admit that, but that it continues to move forward so that when it does arrive at town council, it will have been perfected or polished, if you will, for an acceptable project.
Okay. Mr. Carlson?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think a number of the conditions, as we work through final development plans, those conditions fall off automatically because the TIA will be addressed, because the drainage studies will be done, because the water and sewer master reports will be updated. So those are all natural items that are part of conditions that will just disappear when it's time to go to council on the plat.
Any questions from Commissioner Evans?
If I beat this horse one more time, it's going to kick me, but I'm going to do it. Again, just I think we've got some internal information system issues between the town and the commission. There's so much that I heard here tonight and my colleagues that we hadn't heard before. The original staff report, except for condition number 6, which is now condition number 7, did not even address circulation, even though the applicant's application talked about circulation. We didn't even see that in the staff report. I really think that it's our duty as a commission to send as light a plate as we can to the council for final plat. There is nothing that is that critical that I can see tonight that would prevent a 30 or 60-day deferral, regroup, and see if we're not down to 5 or 6 conditions. There was a lot in it. That was an incredibly good report, by the way. Your presentation was very clear, made a lot of things very visible. That would have been handy to see before tonight. Really would have. So unless the commission's, kind of coat of arms is a rubber stamp, I think we should actually defer this until maybe another 60 days and get rid of at least half the conditions. Thank you.
Commissioner Griffiths?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Carlson, Chair Zurcher asked you what would happen should the Dewey Humboldt and the state land approval not come through. I'm going to turn that question around. What if those approvals come much quicker than you expect and way prior to the 35th home being completed? Would you then, in advance, move forward with your road construction?
Chair, Commission, I think that's absolutely something that could be explored. I don't make those decisions, but I think I can share that with the development team and say, hey, how can we make this happen?
Good question. That's actually a good spin.
Thank you. I would appreciate it very much if you would do that. And I also want to say that, again, these conditions of approval, they are a protective cover, if you may. It's a matter of right, And before the final plat even starts, these conditions have to be agreed to, completed, and put to bed. So you know what you guys have to do. If you don't do it, this project doesn't move.
Very clear.
Ernest, just out of curiosity, with regard to Commissioner Evans, I don't know if it would even be feasible if, we wait like 60 days and, have, maybe whittle down the conditions. I don't think that would be realistic, would it?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the conditions are put in place to make sure that the project adheres to the town codes. Simply that. It's not a discretionary approval, if you will. It is a condition by staff to make sure that the applicant, the developer, meets the town code as it moves forward. And you're absolutely right. Some of those conditions may fall off as they're accomplished. The TIA is in process. The secondary road access is in process. And some of those conditions combine some things that were stated by CAFMA, for example, as to the width of the road, the composition of the road, the completion of the road. And I'm sure from my experience in the development community, I won't speak for the applicant, but if the secondary road is perfected prior to that, I'm sure the developer would be willing to work towards getting that accomplished sooner in terms of being on the ground.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ruby, your statement about the possibility of the secondary access, should Mr. Carlson get some of his approvals, that was a big concern for our audience tonight, so that should put them at ease. And as a commissioner, I am not in favor of postponing this. Time is money. And again, these conditions are a protective cover. It's a matter of right.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. At this point in time, we'll bring it back to the commission. Are there any further comments or questions with regard to this application? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve preliminary, Commissioner Evans, my apologies.
Just to be consistent, I would like to make a motion that we defer consideration of this preliminary plat approval until the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in May, for the reasons I've stated several times tonight.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Can we get a roll call vote, please, on that?
Commissioner Rutherford,
Point of clarification, would you restate the motion? I didn't hear all of it.
Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Rutherford. My motion is to defer final consideration, or final for the preliminary, but consideration of this preliminary plat until our meeting of May the 8th, so that, A, we can get through some of the information that's been presented as recently as the last hour or so, and make a more informed decision in sending a plate full of conditions, hopefully with a few less than tonight, to the town council. So briefly, my motion is simply to defer consideration of this preliminary plat application until the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of May the 8th.
Thank you. My vote is no.
Commissioner Rankin,
No.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes?
Commissioner Griffiths,
No.
Commissioner Laney, Vice Chairperson King,
No.
Chairperson Zurcher.
No. So with that, motion does not pass. So with that, is there a motion to approve preliminary plat 23-001 with the updated conditions of approval?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve preliminary plat 23001 with the updated conditions of approval as discussed this evening.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Rutherford,
Yes.
Commissioner Rankin,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
No.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Yes.
Commissioner Laney, Vice Chairperson King,
Yes.
Chairperson Zurcher.
Yes. All right, moving on to item number 8B, under action items. We have preliminary plat 23-002 on the application of Robin Fox with Primary Builders LLC. Request for a preliminary plat to convert 2 previously approved duplex buildings into 4 condominium units on .59 acres parcel located within Lot A of the Fairway Patio Homes subdivision, located at 1200 North Tapadero Drive, Prescott Valley, Lot A, with the zoning designation R2-2 residential multiple dwelling units. Presenting this evening. Bear with me. Give it just a second, Jessica, but Jessica,
Oh no, my audience.
I don't want to butcher your last name. Go ahead and pronounce your last name for me again.
Berrigan.
Berrigan, okay, see, I was going to butcher it, so Berrigan will be presenting this. Give it just a second, Jessica.
Yeah.
I think you're good to proceed, Jessica, go for it.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Before you this evening is a preliminary plat requested by Robin Fox with Primary Builders. This is located northwest of the Country Club exit off the 69 highway. It is part of the Prescott Country Club development. This country club development was developed in 1972. However, it was not annexed into Prescott Valley until 2014, which is when it was rezoned to R3 and C3, where we could see here. So the area that is blinking is the area that is applying for the preliminary plat. And you can see there an overlay from their record of survey on the right side. It is already zoned R2. And here's the record of survey. So this is the existing layout for the condo, or they're currently duplexes. They have been issued as duplexes, so they're under construction at the moment, and the applicant is asking for the conversion to be 4-unit condos as a formality. And you can see here that there will be 4 total units. And the shaded areas are governed by the HOA. Here are the elevations for those units. And like I said earlier, they have already been issued as duplexes. So they're currently under construction, as you can see there. And just for reference, on the top is the elevation that the applicant provided. And so with that, the staff recommends approval. And the applicant is not here, but I'm here if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Jessica, I had a quick question for you. I know some of us probably drove by Tapadero, and it's a little unusual for us to be discussing and approving something that is actually under construction. Just if you can kind of walk us through that, why that is.
Yes, so initially when the area was rezoned and the applicant was able to provide a record of survey to develop the duplexes, the base district, zoning district allows for it, and it would also allow for that conversion If you look at the setbacks, there's a table on the left that I had highlighted what the new density district would be as a condominium complex. So because they didn't apply for that to be recorded at the time, they are going through that process with the county.
Okay, so was this just because Tapadero was annexed into the town, was this like, oops, were they just dealing with the county instead of the town originally? Is that it?
No, so, I'm sorry, I'll back up.
Okay.
So it's part of the country club development, and then the area shaded on the right, let me see if I can make it. So.
Works, yeah, that.
So that area, that is shaded, like rose pink is the Fairway subdivision, the Fairway Patio Home subdivision. So it is a little odd how it was annexed, but that's how it was in 2014. And the owner would like to sell the individual units, and that's why she's requesting the preliminary plat.
If anyone's not familiar with it, next door is a four unit.
They did the same thing, yes.
So, okay, any other questions, Bruce, Commissioner Evans?
The background information in the packet talks about parcels A, B, and C and 75 townhomes, and I'm slightly confused. I just want to make crystal clear that this approval tonight just deals with that 1.59 acre lot with the 4 condominiums. It doesn't recodify, renew, refresh, do anything to Fairway or the other ABC. It's just simply, because it's kind of confusing with all the extra stuff that was in the packet. I wasn't quite sure what we were being asked. I was pretty sure it was this, but I just want to clarify.
Yes, you are correct. The other parcels that were called out were just for background reference.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I think we can simplify the matter by saying this simply changes the manner of ownership, that each of these units can be owned by an individual, or they can all be owned by one, but it will be private ownership. It's more of a housekeeping matter.
Instead of a subdivision, a private ownership, yes.
We're not approving new construction.
Any other questions? Seeing none, at this time, since the applicant's not here, I will open the floor to public comment. Is there anyone wishing to comment on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Is there a motion to approve PP preliminary plat 23-002 for the 4 new Tapadero condos?
Chairman, I'll make a proposal to approve PP 23-002 preliminary plat for the 4 new Tapadero condos.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Rutherford,
Yes.
Commissioner Rankin,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Yes.
Commissioner Laney, Vice Chairperson King,
Yes?
Chairperson Zurcher.
Yes. Moving on to item number 9, call to public consideration and discussion and comments from the public. Those wishing to address the Planning and Zoning Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Anyone wishing to address the commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 10. Is there a motion to adjourn? Did you want to say something? It's a call to public. Come on up. If you want to say something, come on up.
I'll be as fast as I can.
And you cannot discuss anything that's already been discussed here this evening. This is just for anything new.
Yeah, we've had an issue ongoing at the villages with our desert pines or whatever they're called, neighbor.
Go ahead and go ahead and raise the mic to your Mouth for me, sir, and go ahead and state your name for the record.
Oh, no, I don't know if I can read this far away from my... You want my name, obviously. Bill McGivern. I'm in lot 396 in the Villages at Lynx Creek. And a lot of questions have come up with basically what's been going on out there construction-wise. We heard a lot of similar comments from the Quailwood people. In other words, there's supposed to be 2 points of ingress and egress, and they don't have but one, and they have no plan that we've seen for a second one, so they're still moving ahead, kind of in violation of your requirements for two ingresses and egresses. I understand, and we've been advised by Mr. Ruby, who's great to work with, guy is sharp and knows what's going on. Planning and zoning stipulations convey with a change of ownership. We understand that to be the case?
We can't really answer
Okay.
this evening. That's the only downside to call to the public. We can have staff get back to you on these, on anything you are raising this evening.
Well, I think we know the answer. We've been advised of the answer. The question that has come up with regard to some of the questions that we've had is, who has responsibility and liability for marshaling and enforcing the planning and zoning stipulations that you set forth?
Again, sir, I have to, just after you're done, we'll have staff with you.
Okay. Well, you have a specific process for seeking changes, and we, at Fain's direction and his attorneys, spent about 4 months negotiating an agreement for the adjacent property to us, and that was read to the Planning and Zoning Board, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the note and the date, but it went on to the town council and was approved the following month, so that was all in place. Well, mysteriously, as soon as the new owner took over, the agreement for the buffer of 20 feet got reduced to 10 feet without going through your planning and zoning process that requires that adjacent property owners be advised of the proposed change and they get a chance to talk like I'm talking now about it. So our concerns were just to get it in the record somewhere that there's an objection to what they're doing. The biggest problem is the 20-foot was set up after discussions with the fire department, ambulance services, sheriff's department, police department. They needed that much to have vehicular traffic from the back of the site because all the utilities, the water, electricity, phone, everything is serviced totally from the back. So when it got changed from 20 feet to 10 feet, supposedly, without going through this planning and zoning process for approval and notification, everybody got a little bit upset. Well, upset wasn't the big word because 3 days after that change they came in and they built a wall, 6-foot wall on the back of the property, 4 feet from the property line. Well, that totally precludes any vehicular traffic. You can't get a bicycle through there now safely.
Time's expired, but what we're gonna do, if you can just do us a big favor, make sure you see Kelly after the meeting. We wanna make sure you get your contact information, and then we will definitely have staff follow up with you.
Okay, and again, I say we have given Mr. Ruby 25 or 30 pages of documentation of all the various negotiations, dates, times, who said what to who and when it got approved. So if there's anything the staff needs in addition to that, we will certainly, we'll get it one way or another. Does she want a copy of these questions?
That probably would be very helpful.
Okay, I brought them, I figured you might.
So, and then just like I said, after the meeting, just go ahead and get with Kelly.
Pardon?
Go ahead and get with Kelly after the meeting.
Okay, will do.
Your information.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to come out and vent our concerns, but you know, we got a bunch of old geezers out there that don't have any idea of what's going on until they see these tractors running up and down in their backyard and their dogs getting loose in the field that everybody's used to having bicyclists and joggers and whatnot go through. So somehow I got nominated for the chore of we had a committee formed, 300, we called it the 300. It was for all the property owners within 300 feet that had part of the process notification. So here I am still again.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We appreciate what you guys are doing too, because I mean I've been in communities where there was an inadequate planning and zoning, and it's terrible to have a guy build $1 million house and have some guy have a weld shop put up next to him 2 weeks later. Protecting our interests is good. Sorry.
All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
One second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.